Hello everyone, and today I just want to share a little bit more about the most recent presentations about show and tell. So first of all, presentations. What do presentations look like for bees? Well, what I want to touch on here is that presentations for bees, it doesn't look like presentations for IELTS or for teens. It doesn't mean that they have to stand in front of the class and say, "Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about..." No, not like that at all. Presentations for bees, all it means is a longer extended speaking turn. What does that mean? It could mean like, "Hi, my name's Adam. I'm 4 years old. I'm from Vietnam." That's a presentation. It could be that they are holding flashcards and they say, or they're looking at a picture of a poster. And they say, "This is a ball. This is a cat. This is a bag. I like cats." This could be considered a presentation in terms of bees. What do you expect students to be able to produce? So as I just said, we expect them to be able to, make multiple sentences. Maybe they can't connect their ideas together yet, but the idea is that they're practicing saying multiple sentences in a row. How long do they need to be able to produce that? So the key message here is that with show and tell, it's not expected that everything is just finished in one lesson and it's only done in that one lesson of show and tell. But in fact, getting students to improve their speaking skills, getting students to be more involved, it takes a long time. And this is something which needs to be included a little bit in every single lesson. And the show and tell is basically just the production stage. And before that, there has to become lots of practice. So let's go on to the next slide. So strategies is repeating or speaking. What is the difference? Well, it's a very big difference. So repeating means that all they are doing is that they are looking at the teacher and repeating what the teacher says. Whereas speaking means that they are thinking, some thought processes are going on, and then their mouth is moving and language is coming out. So one of the key things that we need to do is when we are helping students to become good presenters, good speakers in class, then we need to get students in the choice of need to get students in the habits of making choices, not just repeating. So for example, if I were to say any word in English, there's a very good chance you could repeat it. But does this mean that you know it? Does this mean you understand it? Probably no. So what we need to do is we need to give students a choice. If you look at the picture here of fruit, instead of me pointing to the fruit and asking you to repeat it, is that after we've done a task where you're familiar with the vocabulary, we could do an activity where we go around the room and say, what fruit do you like? And they could pick one of the pieces of fruit and they could say it. That way we're giving them more choice in order to engage their brains in speaking. What we could also do is that we could have them making 2 lines, and line number 1 asks the question, "What fruit do you like?" Line number 2 answers the question by looking and choosing the fruit that they like. Here, it's a very simple task, but it's good because instead of giving the student the answer, the student has to provide the answer themselves by thinking about it. And the more choice that you give to students, the more that they develop these skills. Here is another example, is that if we are doing about animals and they've learned animals before, we could ask them, "What do you see?" And they could say, "A horse, a pig, a cow." We could even ask, if they're slightly higher level students, is "What do you like?" If they're even higher level students, we can ask them, okay, say 3 things you see in this picture. We can provide them with a structure. "I see a..." And then they could say, "I see a horse, I see a pig, I see a cow." Or you say, "I see red, I see green." The point here is that students should have choice in order to make these decisions, make these choices, and develop their independent speaking skills, not just spend all lesson repeating. A similar here is that there's a picture which shows many of the vocabulary items that we may be studying on that day, and we can give them choice. The way that we give them choice, it can be, we can invite individuals, we can have them in small groups, we can have them make 2 lines. But the point here is that you need to give your students more choice if you want them to develop their speaking skills. Okay, next we're talking about some activities to make things more thoughtful or interactive. So how could we make these more thoughtful or interactive? So repeating, "I like bananas, I don't like apples." is instead of doing this, we could give them the phrase, I like, I like. We could turn it into a chant where we go, I like, I like, I like. And then you point to a student and they have to choose something they like, or if they need more support, they can look at a picture and they can choose one of the things from the picture. That way, instead of the students just repeating it without actually having to think about it, every student is engaged because they're joining in the chant, and every student is engaged because they're having to choose something. Again, we're stressing, student choice. Having students sing along to a song or read a poem. Again, this would be something that I could do where we are, instead of having them just sing along to the song, we could break the song into different sentences from the song, and we could have flashcards which represent this, and then we could play games where students have to find the flashcards after I say that sentence. So for example, if you have the song like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are, and there could be a picture which represents that line of the song. And then by breaking it into line by line, it can help them to become better at remembering it and producing it. Reading a story to the students. How can we make it more thoughtful, interactive? Well, when we're reading a story, we have to remember that we don't just read stories as it is, but we have to stop and engage students by asking them questions. When I read small student stories, they're always pointing and looking at the book. They're not listening to the story. That's why I realized that you shouldn't just tell the story, but you should try to engage your students with the story by pointing to the story, asking them questions like, what color is it? What can you see? Can you see green? Can you see something red? Can you see the bird? Can you see the cat? This way the students are really engaged with the story in a meaningful way. And these strategies will not only help you in step 1, which is the introducing of it, but also in step 2, which is the practicing of it, and step 4 and 5, which is in the production stage of it. Here, this is just more ideas about this. Is that what we could do is we could give students 2 or 3 fruit flashcards, and they have to make their own sentence. So say choose one of the 3 things they like, one of the 3 things they don't like. This way, we're not giving them too much choice, but they're still having to make some conscious choice. Another way is that they could do it in pair work. So one student could say, I like, and then the other student could say, me too, or I don't. Or it could be a Chinese whispers type game where one student has to say something I like, and then the other student has to run to the teacher and say what the other student liked. Other strategies. So by modeling and scaffolding, so this part is in the teaching how to do. What we could do is to teach a language we want them to use in chunks. What this means is not just say, it's red, but it's a red ball, or I like red balls. Whatever language we want them to produce, make sure that they hear it first. Use substitution drills. Substitution drills are when we keep the structure the same, but we change the vocabulary words. For example, this is my bag, this is my ball, this is my phone, this is my computer. This way that they can get used to it. Singing a song. So if kids are really good at remembering songs, then why don't we turn the learning vocabulary into a song? We can put it into a song where it's like you can choose a tune which is familiar to them, and then you can put in vocabulary learning. We can use body language to help them remember. Anytime where the students have a body language associated with a word, it's just adding another hook in which to help them to remember it. And obviously we can rehearse in small groups and pairs. The more small group and pair work we have in kindergarten, the more they're going to have more practice and the easier they're going to remember. Specifically, you can print out handouts with the images you want them to talk about, and they can sit opposite each other, take turns in speaking use to provide structure. Make it a game, so a teacher could call out something and the students have to race to say how many of there are. So for example, if there are 4 watermelons and 3 bananas, the teacher calls out, how many watermelons are there? And then the students have to race in pairs to say, there are 4 watermelons. You could have students to line up and say things from the picture, or you could play Chinese whispers with what they can see. These are just strategies that you can use in your classes to get students engaging more, making more choices, and just being more involved. You could turn it into a routine. So for example, you could have, instead of waiting for the show and tell lesson, you could have routine presentations What does this mean? This means that so at the beginning of each lesson, you can invite 1 or 2 students to start the front of the class and have them make basic presentations like, my name's Adam, I'm 4 years old, I like dogs. And if we have a different student each lesson, then each student gets small practices of making presentations. We can also do it like here you see on the slide. Today I feel. So, hi, my name's Adam. Today I feel happy. And then we invite the next student up. This is just way where they're constantly being given practice, constantly practicing. And finally, okay, I'm sorry, the videos haven't loaded in here, but the videos here, there are 2 videos here. One is a video of different ways of saying hello. This is, again, a way of giving students choices. We can teach them different ways of saying hello, different ways of saying goodbye. Then they have multiple choices that they can make every single class. And the more choices they're making, the more they're engaging their brains. I'm sure you've heard students who go, hey, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you? Immediately you think this student doesn't speak English. The more choices you can give them, the more that they can use their brains when they're engaging with the language, the more they're going to learn and the better they're going to be at speaking English. And the second video is just another memory game where it's just an example of a YouTube resource that can be used to try and get students to engage with their brains, with the content, instead of just repeating. And that's the end of this video. So I know that you had a training session on this recently. I just wanted to provide a few more ideas with this follow-up video. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope to receive any questions if it isn't clear. All right, good luck, take care.